You might be getting rich and not even know it. In this video, I'm going to share the signs that prove you're on the path to getting wealthy, and that way you can check if they apply to you. Several months ago on this channel, I made a video about how to spot if someone else is secretly wealthy, and that one was all about reading other people. But this video right here, it flips it around. It's about the habits and actions that you are taking on a regular basis that tell me you are secretly getting rich, even if it doesn't feel that way just yet. The first sign that shows me you're secretly getting rich is that you are a long-term thinker and you're not optimizing for the short term. One of my favorite thinkers is named Naval Ravikant. And in a lot of his clips and podcasts where he talks about building wealth, he has said that if you optimize for long-term gains, you will become wealthy. In fact, let's listen to an interview clip where he talks about it. I actually now firmly believe that everything you do in life, all the returns in life come from compound interest. It comes from the length and strength of your relationship. Look at the PayPal mafia and how they just keep compounding into new companies that they do together. Similarly, in your marriage or relationship, the longer you hold out, the better it gets, right? The better longer survive. Warren Buffett is the richest guy on the planet, or legally the richest guy on the planet. There's a lot of illegal wealth out there too. Because he never spends a dollar, he just reinvests it, he just keeps compounding it, he holds it. So if you are someone who relates to this clip, then that's a really good sign that you are on the way to a lot of financial success down the road. If you're looking for a real world example of how to spot this sign, I want to give you guys an example. So let's pretend you want something that's $50 or perhaps it's even $500. How long do you wait before you actually pull the trigger on this purchase? A lot of wealthy people will research a purchase for months. They might wait for the perfect sale, and sometimes they might even decide they don't actually need that item at all. If you have that habit of delaying purchases, that means you are able to delay gratification, which means that you are probably a long-term optimizer. Whether that's your own personal expenses or when it comes to investing, this is the key concept that makes you very, very rich later on in life. You have to give up some of the things now for a much better financial future later. Now, throughout this entire video, I want you to understand that the practice of building wealth and getting rich is slow and it's not always visible. And in fact, a lot of the signs that we're going to be talking about today, they are signs that you are on the right track, but perhaps your wealth hasn't caught up to your actions just yet. That brings me to sign number 2 today, which is that you are earning more, but you don't actually want to spend more. Most people, the moment they get a raise, or perhaps they're all of a sudden making more money, guess what? They want to spend more money because they can. This is a natural human behavior, by the way. The more resources you have, the more that you will just naturally use. It's kind of like in school when you had 2 weeks to complete an essay. You often would take those 2 full weeks to do that essay. Even though the essay might only take you perhaps 1 day or perhaps even just a few hours, you leave it all to the end. You used up all the available time that you had, which were all your available resources. That same behavior trickles down to finance as well. So when you are making $60,000 a year and you are spending $55,000 of it, you are saving $5,000 in a year. Then all of a sudden you get a promotion and now you make $80,000 a year, and most people are going to unconsciously drift their spending up towards that $75K a year mark. And they think, well, I'm saving $5K a year still, so I'm probably fine. Now, what if instead I challenge you to do this? If you get that promotion, keep your lifestyle close to where it was, and then you can start to save $20,000 a year. That's a completely different financial trajectory for you. If you're able to do that for the next 10 or 20 years, your savings rate is one of the biggest predictors of long-term wealth. And I would say this is what you should be focusing on even more than investment returns. The wealthy people that I know and talk to don't equate a bigger paycheck with the permission to spend more. It just means how much more money can I actually save and put away. So I think that when you do earn more money, if you don't have that urge to spend more money, it's actually a really good sign that you're going to be someone who's actually building real wealth. Sign number 3 today is that you have no car payment. So perhaps you drive a 5 to 10-year-old reliable car that's completely paid off. Or even if you drive a luxury car, it's completely paid off as well. You are secretly getting rich if you understand that spending $700 a month on a car payment for something that is losing value every single day is highly negative ROI. At $700 a month, that could be an extra $8,400 a year to invest instead. And over 10 years with compounding returns, that could be well worth over a H100K later on in life. According to surveys and recent articles, around 40% or more of Americans have an existing car payment or auto loan. The interesting thing here is that the average car payment in America is now $767 per month. So by default, if you don't have a car payment, that means you have a lot more disposable income compared to the average person, and hopefully you can invest and save that. Now, if you do have a car payment, that doesn't mean you aren't secretly getting rich as well. A good sign that you're secretly still doing well while having a car payment is that you have a car that's had most of its depreciation already paid for or perhaps already gone. If you're familiar with car depreciation curves, different cars will have different curves, but the curve curve dramatically gets flatter after the 5-year mark, which means that most of the depreciation has already been occurred. So if you want to save money when it comes to cars, I think it makes a lot of sense to buy a car that has around 30,000 MI, that is around 3 to 5 years used. So the sign that tells me you're doing well is that you either have no car payment or you understand depreciation really well, and you understand that the car is just transportation from point A to point B. All right, moving on to sign number 4 today. That shows me you're secretly getting rich. It's that you've mastered the art of living below your means. That means you are spending consistently less than what you make, and creating this gap between what you make and what you spend is building your savings and your investments over time, and this will in turn turn into financial freedom. Now, you can do this in 2 separate ways. So first, you can either decrease your expenses so much that your existing income creates that gap, or second, you can increase your income as much as possible, therefore you create that gap naturally. Let's talk about the first method, which is decreasing your expenses. So one way that I would do this is to look at the last 3 months of your spending. Write everything down and see where you are overspending in certain categories. Just doing this exercise will help you find any place where you're perhaps spending a little bit unnecessarily. And then when you find those places and categories, you can cut back on those things. What you want to track on a monthly basis is that gap between your income and your expenses. And if that gap is growing over time, or at least staying flat, then that is a sign that you are slowly getting rich. Now, in regards to the second method, which is increasing your income as much as possible, this probably plays a bigger role than cutting your expenses. According to this article from Credit Sesame, while 66% of households earning over $100K per year said that they were spending less than they earned, the national average is actually being pulled down, because for households making under $50K per year, fewer than 40% are living within their means. So all that quote basically is telling us is that as you increase your income, you can have an easier time to live within your means. Increasing your income is not exactly easy, though. Sometimes it'll take a job change. Sometimes it takes developing a skill that's hard to replace. I talk a lot about building skills in my previous video that I just posted on the channel, and I'll leave a link to that video at the end of this one and also down below in the description if you want to check that out later. The point of sign number 4 is that hopefully you are keeping track of the gap between your expenses and your income. And if you're consistently living below your means, then I think this is a really good sign that you are well on your way. Sign number 5 today is that you value your time more than goods. When you start to get to a place where you value your time more than physical goods, it means that you're in a position where you can pay money to perhaps trade back or buy back time. Most people want to buy more physical possessions or things that they can show off to others because in their minds, these are the things that visibly show to society that they are doing well. I think this is really a common mindset, especially when you're younger. You want that new car, you want that new apartment, or perhaps you want those new sneakers. But I do think that the true sign of wealth is having a calendar in which you are free to say no to certain things. You only do things because you want to do them and not because you have to do them for some sort of monetary outcome. And when you have that, that means you can actually trade some of the money that you have for your time back. So for example, you might spend $150 every 2 weeks on a person who comes and cleans your house. But because you get those 3 to 4 hours back from the cleaning itself, you can go and make more money with your time, or perhaps you can use that time to relax, and perhaps that means you're in a more creative state in your work later on in the week. If you're starting to think about how you value your time and what it's actually worth in terms of a dollar value, I think this is a really good sign to me that you are on the path to secretly getting rich. Sign number 6 is that you've stopped comparing yourself to others. There's a term in the financial world called keeping up with the Joneses. And the reason that this term has been around for so long is because it's probably the most destructive thing that can happen to your personal finances. The moment that you start measuring how well you are doing financially against your neighbors, against your friends, or even people on social media, that is not a good thing because that's when you lose sight of what's important. When you start to compare yourself against someone else's highlight reel, that is not the best comparison at all because you actually don't understand what's going on behind the scenes of these people's lives. The new car might be leased, or they might be living in an apartment that costs them 50% of their income. You just genuinely don't know. And the more important thing here is that it doesn't actually matter. I think that if you have been secretly getting wealthy all along, you've probably stopped paying attention to others completely. So when you stop caring about others, you will stop spending money on things that you don't actually want to impress people you don't actually care about. And if that's you, I think that's a good sign that you're on track. Sign number 7 is that you don't feel the need to talk about money. So there's a pattern that I've noticed, which is that the people who talk the most about money, what they make, perhaps what they buy, what things cost, these people are rarely the ones who actually have a lot of money. If somebody gets a raise, the first thing they like to do is go tell people. Or if somebody gets a new car, they usually post about it on their Instagram within 24 hours. And I think a huge reason why people do this is that part of the value of buying that thing or getting that raise is telling other people about it. If you spend $1,000 on a Michelin star dinner, but nobody knows about it, didn't even still happen. For some people, the social proof is part of the reason why they want to buy that item. That same behavior kind of happens when somebody goes to another country and they take Instagram photos in front of a popular tourist destination like the Eiffel Tower, or perhaps they go to a concert and they feel the need to post like 1,000 concert videos online. If you are secretly getting rich, you would probably stay silent, not because you're hiding anything, but because you don't need that validation. You know where you stand financially and there is nothing left to prove. This also applies to how much you make as well. If somebody is constantly complaining about their income or perhaps boasting about how much they make, you can tell that their biggest source of their identity is money. If you're secretly getting rich though, you're probably paying attention to another number, and that is your net worth that matters way more than your income because it's a reflection of your habits as well. So if you've noticed that you've stopped sharing as much about money or you don't really talk about it in general, I think that's a really good sign that you should recognize that shows you that you're on the right path. Sign number 8 is that the things that used to feel like sacrifices, they don't feel like that anymore. When you're starting your wealth building journey, every dollar you save sometimes feels like you're sacrificing something or you're giving up something. Take, for example, if you pack your own lunch to go to work, maybe that lunch isn't as delicious as your corner store deli sandwich. It might make you feel like you're missing out on something more exciting. In other words, sometimes you could get FOMO about the things you can't experience because of your money saving habits. But here's what happens after a while. This is actually one of my favorite signs on today's list. A lot of those things that feel like sacrifices early on in life, you might actually start to enjoy those things. Not going out to the bars on a Friday night might induce some FOMO in your early 20s, but later on in life, that might be exactly what you want to do. You want to be like me on a Friday night, playing League of Legends at home by myself, yelling at random people on the internet. That will seem like the obvious move to you at some point in your life. Just trust me. Another move could be to max out your Roth IRA. And it doesn't all of a sudden feel like you're locking money away, but you're actually putting that money towards a better future. As your identity changes from someone who is bad with money to someone who is good with money, your values are going to change as well. And when those values just start to reflect good financial behaviors, then you don't really have to think about those sacrifices being sacrifices anymore. At that point, it's just become a default part of your nature. So if you notice that things that used to bring you discomfort no longer do so, then I think that's a really good sign. Examples of this could be like when you pack your own lunch, you don't feel so bad about it. Or perhaps when you don't get coffee out, it's not like you are missing that Starbucks Frappuccino. So if these things are just normal now, then it's a really good sign that you're secretly becoming rich. Sign number 9 today is that you do not panic when the market drops. If you've been around in the financial landscape for quite a long time, you know that the market, especially when it comes to geopolitics and macro events, it becomes very volatile. When everything you are reading in the news is negative and your group chats are sounding off and saying, oh my God, I lost X% of my portfolio today. That is not good for your mental health. Many people who are surrounded by this negative information all the time might actually panic sell a lot of their investments and realize losses when they maybe in reality didn't actually need to. Unless you are retiring soon and need to preserve your short-term wealth, it is often better to simply stay in the market rather than trying to time it. Market volatility is going to happen, and when in doubt, you want to zoom out. So this graph shows that despite market pullbacks, stocks usually go up over the long term, even during horrible black swan events like the Black Monday in 1987, September 11th, the pandemic, and much more. So when the market drops, the quietly rich person doesn't really see a problem. They view it as an opportunity to buy more shares of what they're invested in. So if you're noticing that you don't panic at all when things are volatile and turbulent and you're just like, yeah, don't worry, in 10 or 20 years, it'll be okay. That's the type of mindset you want to have. Even if you just have a little bit of that feeling, I think that's a really good sign that you're trusting the process and the data. All right, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments and make sure to check out my next video right here. I told you I would link this one. It's the one where I talk about skills and how to explode your net worth from 0 to 100,000. I think you will really enjoy that video right there. And if not, I'll see you guys in a future video. Thank you.